everybody, welcome back to another video. So today I am going to be doing a meal prep. So it's not really going to be like a winter style meal prep, but I just know I'm going to have a really busy week, so I'm going to try to make a bunch of stuff in advance. Some of the things that I'm going to make is some soup toscana, and I'm also going to make one type of dessert. I can't decide if I'm going to make Rice Krispies or if I'm going to make chocolate pudding, one or the other, maybe both, I don't know. I bought some bananas to make banana chips for like a sweeter snack as well. And then I'm also going to make a breakfast lasagna, which is really, really good. And whatever else I can think of. So stay tuned. Okay, so the first recipe, I'm gonna use the crock pot. The recipe calls for it to be done on the stove, but I'm just going to be efficient and do it in the crock pot instead. So I'm gonna break up a couple of these sausages. I have a bunch of potatoes that I got on clearance, so I'm gonna use up some of those, and then have some kale and all the other ingredients. So put that together.
Zuppa Toscana!
So this is everything that I will need. I'm gonna use some clearance sausage. This is some cut up onion already, some frozen kale. I have some potatoes that definitely need to be used up, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to preface this recipe with saying if you do have the time, it says that it only takes 45 minutes or so to make. So if you have the time, I would just make it in the stove, but I got ambitious. I wanted to double the recipe and thought it'd be easier to put in the crock pot, but I think it would taste better in the stove because it gets its own elements in there instead of all being molded into one. But it was really delicious at the end. So as you can see, I ground up the meat and I put a couple onions in, some seasonings, garlic, some red pepper flakes, and then I can throw in the liquids and put in the potatoes. I put this on high for about 4 to 5 hours, and then I threw in some frozen kale for the last hour or so it could soak up some of the goodness. It turned out really well. I think the meat would taste a lot better if it was like crispier, but it still tasted really good, and I definitely make this again. Okay, next recipe is going to be chocolate pudding. The base is going to be silken tofu. So I'm gonna warm up these chocolate chips in a microwave safe bowl and then blend it all together. I've made this recipe before a few times, and I just love it because it has 4 to 5 ingredients, so it's super easy. You just throw it all together. You do have to let it sit for a little while so it firms up, but you just throw it all in the food processor and let it do its thing. I do suggest letting your tofu sit out for a little while because once you melt the chocolate, once it hits the cold tofu, then it firms back up. So if it's more room temperature, the recipe works a lot better for blending. Now that it's been in the refrigerator for a few hours, it has firmed back up. As you can see, it kind of almost has like a moussey pudding type texture. It serves enough for 4 with 1 pack of tofu. It is a little bit pricier, but I like this recipe because it makes me feel a little bit more healthy because it has the protein in the tofu and it's still a nice, delicious treat. Now moving on to my banana chip recipe. It's not really a recipe, I'm just cutting up a bunch of bananas. Bananas are so cheap, so this is a great recipe. Just throwing it in the dehydrator, letting it sit overnight at 160 degrees for about 16 hours, and then I will show you what it looks like when they're done. Moving on to my breakfast lasagna recipe. I got this recipe from Lauren Toyota. I will link it down below from Hot for Food. My husband already put together the tofu with some onion and pepper. I'm putting in the seasonings right now, so it's a nice little tofu scramble layer. And then I did use some cooked noodles. She used dry noodles that were oven ready in her recipe, but I like to have it a little bit more liquidy, I guess you could say. So I went with the cooked noodles, and then we are cooking up some sausage for one of the other layers. And in this video, you can see that I'm putting together some hollandaise sauce. She has all of this in her recipe ingredients and everything, so again, I'll leave that down below. But this hollandaise sauce, I don't even ever think that I had hollandaise sauce when I wasn't vegan, but I really like this, so if it's anything like the real thing, you'll definitely like it if that's something that you used to like. Now, obviously, as you can see, I am layering everything up. I put this together the night before. I wanted to bake it for breakfast in the morning. It made it so much easier for when I wanted to make it. I could just turn on the oven and throw it in. But this is the final product right before it gets cooked. The next morning, you can see my banana chips look quite a bit different. They are still almost ready to go. I am anxiously anticipating their doneness. Now the lasagna is almost ready. The recipe calls for you to put tinfoil over the top for the first half and then put it back in so that it can crisp up a little bit on the top for another few minutes until it's ready to go. There is a bit of effort that goes into this recipe, but it did last us for almost a week's worth of breakfast, so I definitely suggest it if you haven't tried anything like this before. It turned out amazing. Okay, this is going to be the next recipe. I got some, not clearance, but on sale tempeh, so I took those out of the freezer yesterday. I'm going to use them up. I'm going to make a peanut butter marinated tempeh. So I have this recipe that I'll link down below, but I'm just going to go ahead and chop it up and marinate it and put it in the oven. This recipe did call for sesame oil, but I used tahini instead. It is sesame paste pretty much, so there's another substitute that I did, which is it called for lime juice, and I used lemon juice. Any substitutions that I make, I'll note them down below, and if they were good or bad, and if you should do them or not. But I just wanted to note that I made a few changes, but it still turned out pretty good. See, I'm cutting the tempeh up into small triangles. The smaller the pieces, the better. It coats them quite a bit better, and you don't want a huge hunk of tempeh. I hate that tempeh has all this plastic, but otherwise it is a pretty good treat, packed full of protein and a really nice meat substitute. You may have noticed I did double the recipe because that's just what we do. So once they came out of the oven, this is what they looked like. I'm using the rest of the marinade to brush on the tempeh, and they are good to go. You can put this on a plethora of different meals. I decided to make noodles and a little bit of broth soup later on, but you can put this on rice and vegetables. You can use it just as a snack. You can do whatever you want with it.
I keep looking at this, and it kind of resembles steak to me. It definitely doesn't taste like it, but there it is.
So like I said earlier, I just made a little bit of a broth and cut up some onions and peppers, threw in some thin spaghetti because it didn't have any rice noodles or anything like that, with a little bit of mushrooms, and threw some of those with some peanuts on top, and it was pretty good. Now for my last recipe of this video.
I am putting together a mock roast beef. So you might have seen in my previous meal prep video that I made some turkey. This time I'm going to alter the recipe just a little bit. It's from the same person that I got the recipe from the first time, so it's a lot of the same ingredients, slight alteration. The beets at the beginning is to give it a little pink texture. I did use canned beets and it said to use fresh beets, so the coloring was a little bit off, as you'll be able to see in the end, but that's probably why. So as you can see, it took a toll on my food processor. I'm just rolling it all up and doing the same process as I did before, putting the seasonings down all around it and baking it. And then after I bake it, I'm going to let it sit and cool and then put it in the refrigerator overnight so that it can firm up like it's supposed to. And then we will have a bunch of sandwich meat ready for the next week. I found a bunch of bread on clearance when I went grocery shopping the last time, so this will be perfect. Eat that.
Juicy and tender.
Do you like it?
Oh yeah.
Does it taste anything like roast beef? Or does it taste a lot more like the turkey that I made?
It's very roasted, you know, like a roasty type feeling
Yeah?
in the mouth.
No specific
No,
meat
definitely
flavor.
doesn't taste like roast beef.
Okay.
Very good, but I don't get roast beef.
Alright, thanks.
You're welcome.
So we'll just go with hickory mock meat, I guess. I sliced up half of this. I'm going to put half in the fridge so we can have it for lunch meat this week. And the other half will go in the freezer until we're ready to eat it.
Okay, so let's be honest. These banana chips do not look great. They look kind of gross, to be honest with you. But when I first experimented with these, I had a banana that was going bad and I wasn't going to use it soon, so I had some room in my dehydrator after I threw some apples in it, so I decided to just throw a banana in it and see how it worked, and these are so good. When you first make them, they have like a little crunchy outer, as you can hear. They're like crispy. So they're like almost like the banana chips that you buy at the store, but like slightly tasting like a freeze-dried version of those, and obviously a lot better for you because those are chocked full of oil and sugar. So if you're looking for a healthy alternative, if you don't have a dehydrator, you can probably put these on a rack in a baking sheet, put them in the oven on the lowest temperature for 8 hours or so, and you should be able to get the same results. But these are my favorite new snack. They're crunchy, with a little bit of cheese. Okay, so that's all the recipes that I made this weekend. My favorite is probably the breakfast lasagna. It's really good. It takes a little bit of time to make, but it's definitely worth it, and it's something just so different and unique that it really just hits the spot when you are able to have some time to make it. So I really love the banana chips too. I know that's not really a recipe, but it is what I meal prepped a little bit this week. They are crunchy, they're sweet, they just kind of hit a couple different spots for me when I'm craving something, so those are really good too. The tofu pudding was really good. I wouldn't put anything in here without being transparent about whether it's good or bad, and everything that I made for this video was really good, so I highly suggest any of the recipes for you. I hope that you like this video. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.